Sometimes the fluid surrounding your baby in the womb may start to leak before you go into labour. It can happen earlier than expected, but usually it occurs when labour is well underway.
For the vast majority of women, just before full dilatation or at full dilatation, just before the baby's ready to be born, their waters will go. Very often they'll go with a gush, or sometimes not so much of a gush, they'll just pop, and then the baby will be born. For the vast majority of women who you leave well alone, that's when their waters will break. The bag of water is there to protect the baby, and it will stay around the baby until just before the baby's born.
I felt very ill the day before. I say very ill, I didn't feel right, and I felt very tired. And I felt enormous, actually. I felt like I couldn't swell anymore, that I was going to actually pop.
And Mark had gone back to bed because my waters broke in bed, and everyone told me it would happen when I was standing up, and it didn't. It happened when I lay down.
What's that feel like?
Wet. To state the obvious.
And I just went back to bed, put my head down on the pillow, laid there for about 10 minutes, and I just felt this. And I was like, okay, is that all right?
I was asleep actually when they went, and I heard a pop in my sleep and woke up to a very wet bed.
But there was water still coming out, and it kind of like stopped a little bit as I was walking. So obviously the baby's head, or in fact it wasn't the baby's head, it was the baby's bottom because he was breech, was plugging up the flow of the amniotic fluid.
But the waters didn't actually do anything because I was sat down in the car, and it was our new car as well. I was sat down in the front seat of the car, and nothing happened until I got up out of the car, and then it was like somebody just got a bucket of water and went shh.
I went to the toilet and it just wouldn't stop coming out.
Well, it's hard to say how much water there was because it absorbed pretty quickly into the mattress, which we've got rid of now. And but it seemed like a lot, yes, and it carried on trickling afterwards as well. So
about 68% of women will go into labour in the 24 hours following ruptured membranes. 90% of women will go into labour within 48 hours of ruptured membranes, leaving a small, very, very small percentage that will go into labour over the next 72 hours.
With my waters, I had a hind water leak 2 weeks before he was born, and my waters went before I went into labour 2 weeks later when I was 37 weeks pregnant.
I had my membranes ruptured with, like, sort of manually with my first because I was induced at 42 weeks because I'd gone over, and that they obviously did it for me, and that was probably the worst part of labour. Really, that was horrible. It was worse than any of the other stuff. Worse than having, a drip put in. Worse than the contractions. Worse than the pushing. All of it. having my waters broken was the nastiest part. But then it only lasts for 2 seconds and it's done, isn't it? So it's not terrible.
I was 29 weeks pregnant then, and didn't realise the consequences of my waters going because it was my first. And just, I don't know, I was just ignorant to the whole emergency situation. I just did not appreciate what the implications were.
The NICE guidelines do say that we can wait up to 96 hours and rates of infection are not increased. So it's well worth leaving well alone. But leaving well alone means exactly that. No vaginal examinations, no having people examine you to see what's going on or to confirm ruptured membranes, because as soon as you start interfering in the process, you're already putting yourself at risk of infection. So if your waters go, leave well alone and wait for labour to start, as long as you've not got any signs of infection like a high temperature, or the water that you're losing is a strange funny mucky colour, or a strange funny smell.